This podcast is brought to you by Enlightening Learners Academic Coaching and Tutoring Services. In this presentation, we're going to learn probability and odds. Guided questions: what's the probability? What is a chance? What is odds? And how are probability and odds different? Okay, so some definitions about probability and some terminology. A probability is a measure of how likely it is for an event to happen. We go from 0 to 1. If an event is certain to happen, it's a 1. If the probability is certain not to happen, it's a 0. And everything else in between here can be written as a fraction or as a percent. So, example, if the odds are 1 out of 2, it's a 50% chance. If it's 3 out of 4, it's a 75% chance. If I've got 1 out of 100, it's a 1% chance. There's an equation that we can use: desired outcomes over possible outcomes. What's another way to think of that is what we want over the total number of possible outcomes, and it's equal to our percentage rate over 100. And again, we cross multiply and divide in order to solve. Okay, so here's an example. We're playing a Monopoly game. You get a chance, you get to roll again if you get doubles. So what's the probability of rolling doubles? Now notice I said probability. Okay, probability is the number of ways, it's the number of what we want over our number of possible outcomes. Now in Monopoly and backgammon you get 2 dice. So each die has 6 sides. But what happens if you've got 2 dice? Now most people would think that it's 6 times 2 or 12. So we've got 12 possible choices, but that's not correct. So take a look at this illustration. We've got 1 die here, we've got a second die over here. We've got a 1, 1, a 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, and 1, 6. That's an event that happens. Now notice how many events that there are. There's an easy way to do this. There are 6 possible choices on our first die. There are 6 possible choices on our second die. That's 6 times 6, which are 36. Now if you count all of these possible outcomes, you'll notice that there are 36 possible outcomes that we can get. And it just so happens it works out nicely that they line up. 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6. Now, what we want are one of those 6 possible combinations. That's a 1, 1, or a 2, 2, or a 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. That's 6, 6. Those are our 6 combinations that we want. Anything that repeats in a double. And there are 36 total possible outcomes. So we would work this out by saying 6 out of 36 is equal to R over 100. This can be reduced to 1/6. Regardless, it's 600 divided by 36 will get us our percent. Now, when we talk about chance, we're talking about, we're talking about percent. So probability typically deals with your fractions. Chance, we're talking about a percent. Okay. Now we come to odds. Odds is a little bit different. In odds, we want what we want over what we don't want. It's what we want over everything we don't want. And again, it'd be equal to an R over 100 if we wanted to change it to a percentage. So let me take an example. What are the odds of me rolling what are the odds of me rolling a 6 on one die? Well, what I want is I want a 6. What I don't want, I don't want a 1, I don't want a 2, I don't want a 3, I don't want a 4, and I don't want a 5. The only thing I want is a 6. So what we want is a 6. What we don't want is this. So there's one thing that I want, which is a 1. There are 5 things that I don't want. There are 5 things that I don't want. There's one thing that I do want. That can be written as a 1 out of 5. If we wanted to change that to a percent, we would cross multiply 100 divided by 5 would get me a total of 20%. I got a 20% chance of rolling a 6 on one dice. So in closing, when we talk about odds and probability, probability is what we want. It's what we want over our total. And when we talk about odds, it's what we want, our desired outcome, over what we don't want. And that's the difference between probability and odds.